Dear viewers of Gnanis World, Time to Give Back Mission Kaali claims story of Jesus Christ was a hoax, designed to control the people. But after careful examination, we can understand it's a false claim. Now, let us apply the logic of Mission Kaali and see Krishna was a hoax designed by Brahmins to control indigenous people through Varna system. To do so, let us examine historicity and authenticity, Mahabharata and Bhagavad Gita. Next, we have epigraphical evidence for ancient civilizations and dynasties from Indus Valley civilization to the Gupta dynasty period. Then, why don't we have single epigraphical evidence for Vedic culture, Ramayana and Mahabharata in India? Till date, in India, whatever archaeological and epigraphical evidence we are getting through excavations belongs only to Samyak culture or Dravidian culture, and not Vedic cultures or Mahabharata or Ramayana. And the civilizations and dynasties which we mentioned before Gupta period belongs to Samyak and Buddhist or Jain kings only. Intertextual evidence in Mahabharata too proves it is written only after Christ. For example, Pandya and Cholas are with Pandava Sena, the Mahabharata book 8, Karna Parva section 12. Kalingas are with Kaurava Sena, the Mahabharata book 6, Bhishma Parva section 16. And we all know these dynasties, Pandya dynasty, Chola dynasty and Kalinga dynasty is founded in Kali Yuga and not in Dwapara Yuga. Then our question to Mission Kaali is, how come the dynasties of Kali Yuga participated in the Mahabharata war which took place in Dwapara Yuga? When we read Adi Parva, section 1 of the Mahabharata, we come to know that the Mahabharata is first written by Ganesha when Vyasa narrated. From this section, we understand 2 points. 1. It is written first and not passed down orally from generation to generation. Second, it is not history, it is just an imagination story of Vyasa. Does Sanskrit have lipi to write? Then the answer is unquestionably no. Now the question is, if no lipi for Sanskrit, then by which lipi Ganesha written the Mahabharata in Sanskrit? Obviously, the answer would be Devanagari lipi. Now the most important question, when the Devanagari lipi developed? The answer is from the 8th to 9th century AD. Namaskar. Welcome to Gnanis World.
In this video, we'll go through an article from Mission Kaali's website and analyze its claim. The link is given in the description box. The article claims that the story of Jesus Christ was a hoax and it was designed to control the people. This particular article is based on Joseph Atwill's book, Caesar's Messiah, the Roman conspiracy to invent Jesus. Before we continue, please like the video and give your feedback in form of comment. It shows your support and encouragement to us. Do subscribe if you are here for the first time. Dear viewers of Gnanis World, first let us see what Caesar's Messiah means. Caesar's Messiah, the Roman conspiracy to invent Jesus, is a book written in 2005 by self-proclaimed Bible scholar Joseph Atwill. Mr. Joseph Atwill argues in his book that Jesus of Nazareth was a Roman invention, created by the Romans to pacify zealous Jews following the end of the Jewish war in the early 70s AD. The people responsible were an inner circle of people in the Roman imperial court of the Flavian emperors. Now let us see what is the scholarly opinion of this theory. I can confidently say that it doesn't look good for this theory. Even prominent mythicist scholars like Dr. Richard Carrier rejects this theory. Leading biblical scholars such as Bert Yamin also rejects the theory, stating, I know sophomores in college who would rip this to shred, while also stating how Mr. Joseph Atwill had no training in any relevant field. Mythicist scholar Robert Price, while agreeing on certain points, also rejects Mr. Joseph Atwill's claims. A quick read of Caesar's Messiah Wikipedia page will show many cases of how Mr. Joseph Atwill claims or Mr. Joseph Atwill speculates. In short, Mr. Joseph Atwill has a massive burden of proof for his claims. What evidence does Mr. Joseph Atwill provide for his theory? Of course, considering the mainstream view among scholars that Jesus existed, Mr. Joseph Atwill's claim needs to be properly supported by evidence.
However, as previously stated, his claims are mostly speculations. On the other hand, he does use Josephus and his book, The Jewish War, arguing that this work has events that parallel the gospel narratives. There are other things related to Josephus and the theory, such as his alleged satirical view of Christianity. But this also isn't found convincing by mythicist scholars. Richard Carrier, for example, while acknowledging the Gospels do have pro-Roman elements, states that these alleged parallels to Josephus can be explained as either coincidences, mistranslations, or references to Old Testament sources or tropes. Now, dear viewers of Gnanis World, with Mr. Joseph Atwill's evidence and the scholarly consensus out of the way, let's move on to some of the notable problems with the theory. If you are a Roman history nerd, feel free to cite more problems in the comments. Firstly, the most important question, why? Let's put ourselves in the Roman perspective. You have just defeated the Jews in a long bloody war. You have starved them, murdered their families, destroyed the foundation of their religion, that's the temple, and destroyed Jerusalem. Do you seriously see them rebelling anytime soon? Of course, it wasn't long until another rebellion came during the reign of Emperor Hadrian, known as the Bar Kokhba revolt, but this was long after Judea has recovered. The Romans did not need to even consider pacifying the Jews, never mind creating an entirely new religion. Dear viewers of Gnanis World, if you want a further reason to doubt the Flavians had any interest in pacifying the Jews, let us introduce you to Fiscus Judicus. This was the name of a tax imposed on the Jews by the Flavians after the Jewish War. Considering that the Jews had Jerusalem destroyed, their temple destroyed, families murdered, and they were suffering from starvation, you can see that enforcing heavy taxation was in no way trying to pacify them, as Mr. Joseph Atwill believes. To make things more humiliating, the tax money was directed to the temple to Jupiter in Rome. The Wikipedia article states the tax measure improved Rome's finances and also worked as a deterrent against proselytizing. There is also Roman coinage from the Flavian period that boasts about a Roman victory over Judea. Sources at the bottom. The Romans weren't concerned about the aftermath of the war. They were joyful and prideful about it. In 81 AD, following the death of the Emperor Titus Domitian, 81 to 96 AD, constructed the Arch of Titus to commemorate the deification of his brother. It was also dedicated to the victory of Titus and Vespasian's victory over Judea. As well as being a magnificent structure, the Arch of Titus also supports the fact that the Flavians and the Romans in general were prideful and straight up proud of their victory. It displays imagery that, like the Fiscus Judicius, would have been humiliating for the Jews, such as a relief on the south inner panel showing spoils from the siege of Jerusalem that you can find in the sources at the bottom. Now, dear viewers of Gnanis World, let's assume for a second that the Flavians were concerned with trying to pacify the Jews through religious means, going by Mr. Joseph Atwill's thesis that they invented Christianity. This would require the following requirements to be met. The Flavians would have to read or study the Old Testament to find a basis for their fabricated story. Next, they would have to plan out their fabricated story. Next, they would have to go through the process of writing it. Next, they would have to go through the process of spreading this religion. The Jews wouldn't do it, considering that they were being persecuted with their temple being destroyed by the Romans. The last thing they would do is accept and spread a religion produced by Romans, especially a religion with no apparent historical basis. And even if they got a Roman to spread this religion, they would still have the same problem. This leads to another problem. If word got out that the Flavians were behind such a grand conspiracy, the response would be devastating, possibly another civil war worse than the one they had just fought. Now, dear viewers of Gnanis World, let us see the things that don't add up. The Jesus of the Gospels doesn't fit with Mr. Joseph Atwill's theory, as James Patrick Holding puts it.
It is clear that Mr. Joseph Atwill fails on the point of ancient social psychology. He supposes that Jesus was invented to attract militaristic messianic Jews, yet the figure of Jesus is precisely what a dedicated sectary would least follow. Jesus would be regarded as being as far out of the in-group as could be conceived. He would even be taken by the Sikara as a disgrace to Yahweh. The concept of Jesus being crucified would have been enough for him to be rejected by the Jews. Furthermore, where did the idea of him rising from the dead come from? Jewish belief of resurrection was only an end times thing, whereas the Romans didn't even believe in the resurrection at all. The resurrection of one man, never mind one who had been crucified as a criminal, was an idea virtually unheard of to Jews and Romans alike. Considering these major problems, if the Romans were ever at all interested in using religion as a way of controlling the Jews, all they needed to do was convert the Jews to their religion. Convincing a Jew into worshipping Jupiter, the highest god of the people who defeated the Jews, would have been much easier than convincing a Jew into worshipping some random man they had never heard before who is suspiciously being preached to other Jews by the Romans. If the Romans were the authors of the Gospels, we would expect major errors, such as geographic errors, chronological errors, historical errors, etc. Unless this inner circle of Flavian's conspirators were living in and were well familiar with Judea, it is unlikely that they would have authored the Gospels. Pages 58 and 59 of Peter Williams' book, Can We Trust the Gospels? Williams' statement. All four Gospels know the traveling to Jerusalem. That's elevation about 750 meters or about 2450 feet. Is correctly described as going up. Mark and Luke know that leaving Jerusalem is correctly described as going down. This is perhaps not particularly significant, as a capital city is typically portrayed as elevated with respect to other places. There are, however, a couple of occasions when we get the impression that the Gospel writers know rather particularly the topography of the land. In Luke chapter 10, 30 to 31 verses, we read of Jesus telling a story that begins as follows. A man was going down from Jerusalem to Jericho, and he fell among robbers, who stripped him and beat him and departed, leaving him half dead. Now by chance a priest was going down that road, and when he saw him, he passed by on the other side. Jericho is, in fact, the lowest city on the earth, over 250 meters below sea level. Going from Jerusalem to Jericho involves a descent of approximately 1 kilometer. Go down is therefore very much the right expression. The passage assumes a direct route between Jerusalem and Jericho, which of course there is. In John chapter 2 verse 12, the journey from Cana of Galilee to Capernaum is described as going down. We could go on, but we don't want to bore the viewers. Now, dear viewers of Gnanis world, Mr. Joseph Atwill also argues that Jesus was a typological representation of the Roman Emperor Titus, emperor from 79 to 81. This largely has to be with the Roman imperial cult. That's the deification of emperors, and the fact that Jesus was believed to have been God made flesh. Now, there are some instances of the Romans trying to promote the imperial cult to the Jews. The famous Jewish writer Philo of Alexandria in his Legatio ad Gaium reports, where Pontius Pilate sets up shields, likewise associate with the Roman imperial cult, honoring Tiberius in Jerusalem. However, the imperial cult was already firmly established, beginning with the death of Julius Caesar in 44 BC. Allegedly, a comet passed the earth on the day of his death, taken as a sign that he was a god. Augustus Caesar, the first emperor of Rome, was also deified. There is no evidence of Romans, never mind the Flavians, specifically creating a religion to brainwash the Jews into worshipping their emperors. This fictional religion would have been abandoned shortly after or even before the Flavian dynasty even ended. When the Romans realized that no one was converting to their made-up religion, they would have just abandoned it. For example, according to Suetonius, Emperor Caligula, 37 to 41 AD, was planning an invasion of Britain. It was abandoned due to issue with the soldiers. Now, even if the three Flavian emperors, Vespasian, Titus and Domitian respectively, were all in on this conspiracy theory, this whole project would have been abandoned when Nerva, 96 to 98 AD, became emperor after the assassination of Domitian. There is also a coin during the reign of Nerva with the inscription "Abolition of malicious prosecution in connection with the Jewish tax." Dear viewers of Gnanis World, saving the best until last. If the Romans created religion to pacify the Jews and get them to submit to the Romans, why add such anti-Roman elements to the Gospels? As Craig Evans puts it, being seated at the right hand of a deity was another important part of the ritual and symbolism of the emperor cult. A coin minted in Rome in 55 CE depicts divine Claudius seated at the right hand of Augustus, god from God, atop a chariot drawn by 4 elephants. Mattingly, coins of the Roman Empire 201. A later sculpture depicts Hadrian, dressed as Zeus, standing side by side with the image of Jupiter or Zeus himself. Personal Triumphs 69, Tyler Divinity 44-45. The single most significant self-reference made by Jesus in the Markan Gospel is his assertion that the high priest would see him seated at the right hand of God. Mark 14:61. Although based on Psalms 110:1, an Old Testament text cited and alluded to many times in the New Testament, the image of sitting at God's right hand would, quite apart from familiarity with the Jewish scriptures, awoke in the minds of Romans ideas of the emperor cult. It is not Caesar who sits next to God. The Markan evangelist avers it is Jesus.
Conclusion. Dear viewers of Gnanis World, in conclusion, Mr. Joseph Atwill's theory is poorly put together, illogical, implausible, and lacking any evidence. Unfortunately, it is something spotted by the less educated type of mythicists on social media platforms and comment sections of the websites. With this in mind, we hope you enjoyed watching, and if you have any further criticisms of the theory, feel free to drop a comment in the comment section. Dear viewers of Gnanis World, Time to Give Back Mission Kaali claims story of Jesus Christ was a hoax, designed to control the people, but after careful examination we can understand it's a false claim. Now, let us apply the logic of Mission Kaali and see Krishna was a hoax designed by Brahmins to control indigenous people through Varna system. To do so, let us examine historicity and authenticity, Mahabharata and Bhagavad Gita. First, let us read from the Mahabharata, Book 3, Vanaparva, Markandeya, Samasya Parva, section 189 to know it was designed by Brahmins to control indigenous people through Varna system. And commissioned by time, a Brahmana of the name of Kalki will take his birth. And he will glorify Vishnu and possess great energy, great intelligence and great prowess. And he will take his birth in a town of the name of Sambhala in an auspicious Brahmana family. And vehicles and weapons and warriors and arms and coats of mail will be at his disposal as soon as he will think of them. And he will be the King of Kings and ever victorious with the strength of virtue. And he will restore order and peace in this world crowded with creatures and contradictory in its course. And that blazing Brahmana of mighty intellect having appeared will destroy all things. And he will be the destroyer of all and will inaugurate a new yuga. And surrounded by the Brahmanas, the Brahmana will exterminate all the Mlachas wherever those low and despicable. And also let us read from the Mahabharata, Book 3, Vanaparva, Markandeya, Samasya Parva, section 190. The Vaishyas will be devoted to the practices of their order, and the Brahmanas will be devoted to their sixfold duties of study, teaching, the performance of sacrifices on their own account, officiating at sacrifices performed by others, charity and acceptance of gifts. And the Kshatriyas will be devoted to feats of prowess, and Shudras will be devoted to the service of 3 high orders. Never do thou humiliate a Brahmana, for a Brahmana, if angry, may by his woe destroy the 3 worlds. In Dr. Baba Saheb Ambedkar's Writings and Speeches, Volume 3, Ancient India on Exhumation, Government of Maharashtra, 1987, page 361. Dr. Baba Saheb Ambedkar too says the second principle of Gita is to offer a philosophic defense of the Varna system of the Brahmins, that it was created by God and is therefore sacrosanct. In the Gita 4:13, Krishna says the 4 castes have been created by me. Dear viewers of Gnanis world, it is crystal clear that Mahabharata is written by Brahmins and designed Krishna to control indigenous people through Varna system. Now, let us see the reliability of Mahabharata and Gita through linguistic evidence and internal textual evidence. First, let us see about linguistic evidence. When we read Adi Parva, section 1 of the Mahabharata, we come to know that the Mahabharata is first written by Ganesha when Vyasa narrated. Sauti said, Brahma, having thus spoken to Vyasa, retired to his own abode. Then Vyasa began to call to mind Ganesha. And Ganesha, obviator of obstacles ready to fulfill the desires of his votaries, was no sooner thought of than he repaired to the place where Vyasa was seated. And when he had been saluted and was seated, Vyasa addressed him thus, O guide of the Gnanis, be thou the writer of the Bharata which I have formed in my imagination and which I am about to repeat. Translated by Kesari Mohan Ganguly. From this section, we understand 2 points. 1. It is written first and not passed down orally from generation to generation. Second, it is not history, it is just an imagination story of Vyasa. As we are looking for linguistic evidence, let us stick to point 1. If it is written, then the question is in which language it is written. Obviously, the answer would be in Sanskrit, as it is the only Deva Bhasha. Does Sanskrit have lipi to write? Then the answer is unquestionably no. Now the question is, if no lipi for Sanskrit, then by which lipi Ganesha written the Mahabharata in Sanskrit? Obviously, the answer would be Devanagari lipi. Now the most important question, when the Devanagari lipi developed? The answer is from the 8th to 9th century AD. It means Mahabharata is written after the 8th or 9th century AD. Dear viewers of Gnanis world, now we challenge Mission Kaali to prove that Vyasa and Ganesha are very much available to write Mahabharata in the 8th or 9th century AD. Not only this, but internal textual evidence also proves this point. By observing Bhagavad Gita, chapter 13, Shloka 5, we can prove Bhagavad Gita is written after the 6th century AD only. Bhagavad Gita, chapter 13, Shloka 5 mentions about Brahma Sutras. Great sages have sung the truth about Brahman and the knower of the Brahman in manifold ways. It has been stated in various Vedic hymns and especially revealed in the Brahma Sutra with sound logic and conclusive evidence. And when we read Brahma Sutra, section 2, 28 to 32, we see refutation of Vijnanavada of Vasubandhu. Now, we have the history of Vasubandhu. Vasubandhu is a Buddhist philosopher who lived around the 4th to 5th century AD and founded the Vijnanavada school of philosophy. A Buddhist philosopher lived around the 4th to 5th century AD named Vasubandhu. Teachings were refuted in Brahma Sutras, means Brahma Sutras are definitely written after the 5th century AD. As usual, Brahma Sutras are written in Sanskrit and lipi used is Devanagari, means Brahma Sutras are written after the 8th or 9th century AD because Devanagari lipi was developed by that time. Dear viewers of Gnanis world, Bhagavad Gita, chapter 13, Shloka 5 mentions Brahma Sutras means Bhagavad Gita is written after Brahma Sutras only, that is after 8th or 9th century AD. So in both ways, linguistical and intertextual evidence, we can say Mahabharata and Bhagavad Gita is written after the 8th or 9th century AD. And no authentic archaeological evidence, epigraphical evidence, historical evidence for the Mahabharata. We have archaeological evidence for Indus Valley Civilization 2000 BC to 1800 BC. We have archaeological evidence for Malwa culture from 1700 BC to 1500 BC. We have archaeological evidence for Ahar-Banis culture 2100 BC to 1500 BC. We have archaeological evidence for ochre-colored pottery OCP 2000 BC to 1500 BC. We have archaeological evidence for Salvada culture 2000 BC to 1800 BC. We have archaeological evidence for Chiran culture 1500 BC to 750 BC. We have archaeological evidence for Jorve culture from 1400 BC to 700 BC. We have archaeological evidence for the Haryanaka dynasty 544 BC to 413 BC. We have archaeological evidence for the Shishunaga dynasty 413 BC to 345 BC. We have archaeological evidence for Nanda dynasty 345 BC to 321 BC. We have archaeological evidence for the Maurya dynasty 321 BC to 180 BC. We have archaeological evidence for Shunga Empire 185 BC to 73 BC. We have archaeological evidence for the Kanva dynasty 73 BC to 26 BC. We have archaeological evidence for Sangam age 300 BC to 300 AD, Chola dynasty, Cheras dynasty, Pandya's dynasty. We have archaeological evidence for the Gupta dynasty 300 AD to 800 AD. Dear viewers of Gnani's World, we almost have archaeological evidence for ancient civilizations and dynasties from Indus Valley Civilization to the Gupta dynasty period. Then, why don't we have single archaeological evidence for Vedic culture, Ramayana and Mahabharata in India? Next, we have epigraphical evidence for ancient civilizations and dynasties from Indus Valley Civilization to the Gupta dynasty period. Then, why don't we have single epigraphical evidence for Vedic culture, Ramayana and Mahabharata in India? Till date, in India, whatever archaeological and epigraphical evidence we are getting through excavations belongs only to Samyak culture or Dravidian culture, and not Vedic cultures or Mahabharata or Ramayana. And the civilizations and dynasties which we mentioned before Gupta period belongs to Samyak and Buddhist or Jain kings only. Intertextual evidence in Mahabharata too proves it is written only after Christ. For example, Pandya and Cholas are with Pandava Sena, the Mahabharata book 8, Karna Parva section 12. Kalingas are with Kaurava Sena, the Mahabharata book 6, Bhishma Parva section 16. And we all know these dynasties, Pandya dynasty, Chola dynasty and Kalinga dynasty is founded in Kali Yuga and not in Dwapara Yuga. Then our question to Mission Kaali is, how come the dynasties of Kali Yuga participated in the Mahabharata war which took place in Dwapara Yuga? Dear viewers of Gnani's World, Mission Kaali belongs to Nadar Samajam, which is based out of Chennai, means South India, and must be very much aware of this Pandya dynasty and Chola dynasty history. So, it should come out with the evidence to prove us wrong. Dear viewers of Gnani's World, you can Google Nadar Samajam and it will lead to a lawyer. We can discuss more about this Mission Kaali team in coming videos. So, dear viewers of Gnani's World, this Nadar Samajam's Mission Kaali team or staff has to prove that Mahabharata, including Bhagavad Gita, is authentic, reliable itihasa and Krishna was not a hoax and not designed by Brahmins to control indigenous people through Varna system. Now, dear viewers of Gnani's World, everything is in front of you in black and white. Now, it's your choice to decide. Kindly subscribe to our channel and press bell icon for further updates. Also, follow us on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. Thank you.